babe, wanna leave this town. I'm saying, whatever, if you wanna go, I'm down. 'Cause I will make a bigger thing.
Hey there, fellow travelers.
And welcome to She's Got Baggage, where we dive into all the moments of travel, the good, the bad, the weird, the confusing, and every fascinating nuance along the way. I'm Abby.
And I'm Katy.
And together, we're your travel gal pals, here to share the full spectrum of our experiences from life beyond borders.
So grab a seat and get ready to join us as we explore the diverse tapestry of travel, from exhilarating highs to the challenging lows and everything in between.
This is your final boarding call. Thanks for joining us on today's adventure. Hello, travelers.
Welcome back to She's Got Baggage. I'm Katy.
And I'm Abby. Thank you all for listening and sticking with us so far. We appreciate all of the feedback, but please don't forget to give us a rating on your podcast streaming site, as we're still baby podcasters. And if any of you have any constructive feedback or comments, please do reach out to us on our website at she'sgotbaggagepodcast.com or send us a message on our social media pages.
That's right. We are building our community every day. If you want to be included or have an idea for future consideration, please let us know.
Let's get started. Katy, what's new with you?
Oh, girl, I am deep into my strawberry season obsession in Albania. These are the best strawberries in the world, and I just got this giant tub of the perfectly tart and sweet straws for like less than, it was like $1.30. Try not to overdo it, but it is something that I'm trying to take advantage of while we're in this part of the world, and I'm gonna miss a little bit, I'll be honest.
Oh, I get it. I walk to the gym and I can smell the strawberries at the markets, like on the sidewalks. It's so nice. I went to the gym this morning. I don't know, man. As much as I love Albania, gym culture here is super, super weird. I don't know about other gyms, but at mine, I am by far the crustiest, messiest, sweatiest person to have ever set foot in that gym. And it's like super weird. All the Albanian girls show up. They've got coordinated activewear sets like sports bras and leggings, and their hair and makeup is always done. They do very gentle exercises like sitting and taking pictures. Like that's
an exercise.
That's like their exercise.
Selfies.
But somehow they look super hot, you know? Like they've got super like photoshopped figures, and like they're just beautiful, and I'm kind of sweating and grunting like a pig, and I still don't fit into my moo-moos. But that's what I'm up to.
Oh man, speaking of exercise, that reminds me of how much I really miss seeing all the aunties dressed up in like sequins and sneakers doing aerobics and choreo at like 6 a.m. on the beach in Vietnam, like full club music. And it always used to be just the cutest and funniest thing to watch. I mean, they did this all through Asia, but I really miss watching those aunties.
I remember the aunties, and I always liked them, and I wanted to be an auntie, and they always seemed to know the choreography for like song after song after song. And so, but I wanted to join them because I love to dance, and I am like also an old lady, but I never knew how to learn the dances. So I would just kind of hang back and watch them. And you know what else I remember is all of the uncles. When you would go to the beach in Vietnam and you'd see all of these old dudes just standing on the beach, like swinging their bodies.
Swinging their arms back and forth.
And I never really understood what they were doing. But now that I am also getting a little bit older, I find myself swinging my body at the gym in the same way. And I'm like, yeah, man, I like it. This makes sense. So I don't know, man. Asia is super funny. I miss Asia. I love Asia. There are a lot of things I really miss about being there. And I will say this, I really do miss the lack of vanity for a lot of people in some of those countries. Like it's just so natural and easy and casual, and people are just kind of cruising around town in their pajama sets and singing real loud karaoke. They were just terrible. It was great.
Oh God!
Do you remember the dads?
The dads with the pot, like they're like airing out their full bellies, like their t-shirts rolled up to their necks. Like, oh, it was Classic.
And they would get like 4 kids on their motorbike, and there'd be like mom, dad, 4 kids, 5 ducks, a keg of beer, just on a motorbike.
I love watching how many things they could fit on a motorbike. I'm mostly proud. I have this photo somewhere of this guy driving with a fully assembled, decorated, upright Christmas tree on his motorbike. I also have a video of a guy with a lawn chair as a chair for his motorbike.
I had a lawn chair video where someone used the lawn chair in front of the motorbike seat as like a car seat.
Oh,
they just had like a 3-year-old in a lawn chair.
The possibilities are endless, and the sense of humor is really funny. Like, I remember when they passed a law that everybody had to wear a helmet, and people were rebelling against this, and so they were wearing margarine butter tubs, like saying it's a helmet, you know, like it does not do anything to protect you whatsoever, but it was the sense of humor just, it's endless. I love it so much.
Yeah,
So
I miss Southeast Asia a lot, but it's really kind of one of these tragedies of travel is that it's impossible to be everywhere all at the same time. And so now we are in Albania, which has been wonderful in its own way. But I do think back a lot to when you and I used to live in Vietnam, and it's kind of crazy the way that we met and some of the things that we used to get up to when we were both living in Asia. So I feel like this is maybe a good time to tell the story about the way that the two of us met in Da Nang.
I think that you're right, though. I think that, you know, there's all these quotes about how when you're a traveler, you leave a piece of yourself in places, and I would argue you bring a part of those places with you. So you're always missing places you've been, but you're also yearning for places you've never been. So it's that constant struggle of, do I repeat places I've been to before, or do I continue to move forward and explore the new? I think that going back in memory today to get back to Da Nang would be an amazing opportunity. And I think that this would be a good opportunity to bring along a little friend today. What do you say?
Yeah. So I don't know if I've ever really told you about how Pants and I ended up in Vietnam, because Vietnam is where you and I first met. Once upon a time, back in the day, Pants and I were wrapping up our teaching jobs in Thailand, and we had saved a little chunk of money from those jobs, and so we decided to kind of travel on this money until it run out. We wanted to visit a few countries in Southeast Asia, but at the same time, we wanted to keep our eyes open for places to live once we were finished with this big trip.
Right.
So we got motorbikes, and we started in northern Thailand. Eventually, we took a slow boat into Laos where we bought new motorbikes, and then we started what we thought would be about a month or so traveling on motorbikes. It actually turned out to be about a 6-month motorbike trip all around Southeast Asia.
It's incredible that you did that.
It was kind of crazy.
I really want to hear the full story on that again sometime, because it is just so epic.
Oof, it was long. So anyway, how we ended up in Da Nang. Pants and I were doing this motorbike trip, and before we had started it, Pants would always talk about how he wanted to spend some time motorbiking specifically in Vietnam. And he wanted to start in the northernmost part of Vietnam and go all the way down to the south. And for those of you who might not be super familiar with the geography of Vietnam, it's really, really long and skinny. Right in the middle of the country is a beach city called Da Nang, and it's situated right in between North Vietnam and South Vietnam. On this motorbike trip, we had started in Thailand, we had gone into Laos, we crossed the border in northern Vietnam, and we had been sort of working our way from north down to south. And at this point, we had been driving for maybe 2 months or so, and we were approaching central Vietnam, which was Da Nang. By the time we got there, we were getting kind of tired. We had been motorbiking for weeks at this point, and it's hot and it's hard. Like, it's just me on a bike, Pants on a bike with 2 backpacks strapped to the seat. It got tiring. So we get to Da Nang, and I was immediately taken by how beautiful this city was. It's a super chill beach town with all of these really beautiful cafes and really nice coffee shops. And the entire city is coastline. Like, it's just really, really pretty. So we decided that we wanted to stay in Da Nang for a few weeks to kind of rest up before we continued driving all the way south and eventually into Cambodia. We were in Da Nang, and when we first got there, we thought, oh, we'll stay for, 3 or 4 days. But we were like, no, we like it here. So we want to stay a little longer. So, we actually did a workaway. And for people who might not know, yeah, Workaway is so cool. It's like a website where you can volunteer your time or your work in exchange for accommodation, a place to stay. So that's what we did. We found this little hostel and we stayed and we volunteered just teaching English to a bunch of university-aged Vietnamese people. And eventually we continued our motorbike trip after a couple weeks in Da Nang. We got into Cambodia, we sold our motorbikes, and then we flew to Indonesia for about a month. But after spending that time in Da Nang, we had decided that that's where we wanted to return once our vacation was kind of finished. We're like, yeah, Da Nang is cool. We want to go back. We want to teach. We want to live there for a while. So from Indonesia, we were in Bali. We flew back to Da Nang and we got a little apartment right there by the beach. And I think you were kind of in the same area.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in some ways, a similar story. I had originally come to Da Nang when I was traveling, just like you. I was visiting my girl Kelsey, who I grew up with, and she was a teacher in Da Nang. And I probably would not have gone to Da Nang if she wasn't living there, but I went there to visit. So after Vietnam, I had left Vietnam and I went to China and all like Taiwan and all these other places. And at that point I was like, okay, I've pretty much seen as many places as I could consider to become a teacher, and why not try Da Nang? I had a friend in town and I really loved it when I was there visiting. I decided, hey, why not give it a try? Just like you, I got to Da Nang and I volunteered with a workaway at a hostel, a different hostel, I believe, until I got my first place. After my really chaotic time in Shanghai, I really loved getting into the groove of Da Nang, the slow pace, the motorbike rides, the beach days, barefoot and dirty bars that have pigs and chickens running around. Yes. In those good old days, there were 2 hangout bars and everyone met up there. Mm-hmm. It was first at the Village, which is a beach bar, and people would be there all day. And then people go to dinner, and after dinner, go to Minsk. Right. And Minsk was just such a fun bar, and there was live music and just chill place. And
do you remember sitting on the benches at Minsk and being afraid to sit down because they would just crumble?
They would just
fall apart.
It was an absolute disaster. And I don't know why I've glorified it so much, because
no, it was terrible.
It was a terrible bar, but like when it closed, I was deeply upset.
Devastated.
It was just the coolest place. So I just loved Da Nang. And, it was the perfect mix of like a gorgeous beach that was next to a very vibrant city surrounded by mountains and jungles that had monkeys. It had all of the things that I was looking for and all of this amazing food too.
Okay, yeah. So we talk about Da Nang like it was this, we're painting a very rosy picture, right? And it was. That said, Da Nang was fabulous. It was beautiful. It was fun. It was chill. It was wonderful. However, I lived there for about 2 years, and my first rainy season in Vietnam was awful. It was so difficult for me. I swear I didn't leave my apartment for weeks at a time. Rainy season for me was tough. We arrived and it was beautiful, and there's the beach and the bridges and the river and the motorbikes and the monkeys and the mountains and the cafes and the food, and it's just so fun. And then all of a sudden the rain came, and my first rainy season, it rained for 5 months.
I remember that season. It was
I think that was the season that you and I met.
Yeah,
that was when we met. I don't know about you, but the way that I remember it is one night there was finally a break in the rain, and it was really dark and it was pretty cold, and I had not been out of my apartment in days. And I really needed to just like take a walk and get out of my 4 walls. I wanted to get some food. I just had not been out of the house forever. So I remember taking a walk, and I noticed a new food cart kind of down the street from my place, and there was a sign written in English. I remember being so surprised because she was out on a cold, rainy night with this brand new food cart. And I'm like, who is this vendor? Like, what is this? It's new. And it was this young Vietnamese girl, and she was making banh mi sandwiches. Everybody knows the traditional banh mi sandwich, like the Vietnamese sandwich, and they're wonderful. But she was doing kind of an American take, I guess. And she was serving piping hot, super fresh, bacon and egg, melty cheese banh mi. And I was immediately obsessed with her. And I bought a sandwich every single day that she was there, every single day that I could get out in the rain. I was obsessed with this lady. Do you remember? You know who I'm talking about.
I know exactly who you're talking about. And she really was like the beacon at the end of like a really gray day. Those hot, crispy banh mi's, and they were so cheap. It was like the equivalent of 20 cents, 50 cents, like, and it was just amazing. I don't remember how I found her because I just remember just loving her and her always being around.
And gooey cheddar cheese
oh God,
in Asia
is rare.
Rare.
Super rare and expensive cheddar cheese.
But she did it right.
She did.
But eventually, though, she disappeared.
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, I came out one day and she was just gone. And she never came back. And I never understood why, because every time I saw her, she was always busy. She was positioned perfectly in our little expat enclave in Da Nang. She was always popular and busy. And there was one day she was just gone, but there was a really active Facebook group for all of the foreigners in the area. And I don't know, I don't think it was me that posted it, but I remember seeing some kind of post about, hey, does anybody know what happened to the egg and cheese banh mi lady?
Yeah, well, that was me.
It was you that posted it?
I was the one that was panicking about like the case of the missing banh mi lady, and I needed her banh mi again, and maybe she had moved to like a different location. I couldn't imagine her closing up shop because she was always busy. By the way, it was you who responded to my request, inquiring about her whereabouts, but also giving me a potential banh mi alternative.
Oh, did I?
You did. And I don't remember the first time we met in person, but I do remember that's how we met.
Bonding over banh mi.
Yes. Yeah, bonding. You're so dumb. So you and I had like messaged back and forth a little bit about this lady. So I'm pretty sure that's probably what we did was we went to get banh mi the first time together. It was also revealed at this moment that we lived 2 houses down from each other. We were literal neighbors. Mm-hmm. And after we met, I just remember you being in my life. So I'm not entirely positive that that's the way we first met, our first meet and greet, but I do remember subsequent coffees with you and brunch crepes and trying to find the perfect eggs benny and dinner dates and hanging out like as soon as we finished teaching. And I remember funny conversations over Bia Hawaii, which is like that fresh beer that comes out of a keg and it's like ridiculously cheap. The random people that would walk by and strike up conversations with us. Think we bonded because you and I do not shy away from weird conversations or random interactions. In fact, we invite and thrive in these situations.
Do you remember that dude from Taiwan? He was like kind of older than us, and he was walking around town in super short shorts and like a tennis racket. Yeah. And he just came up and he's like, "May I talk with you?" And we're like, "Absolutely." And he said something about how he was like the dean of some university in Vietnam, and then he offered us jobs as like do you remember who I'm talking about?
I
like
know exactly who you're talking about.
Tennis Dennis or something we called him.
Yeah, well, but he offered us actual like
legit jobs,
high profile jobs. Like you were offered to be the dean of farts or dean of arts. Yeah. Pants was athletic director. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you okay? Yeah. So this reminds me. I remember when we first met that guy, but I don't know if I remember the first time that you ever met Pants.
I don't remember the first time I met Pants, but I do remember hearing you talk about Pants for the first time. And I was like,
what's a pants?
What are you talking about? You know, like, and I think this is such a funny thing that happens anytime people meet you for the first time. It's like such a random name for somebody. But I remember one of my first encounters with Pants was you were texting me saying that he had been playing, I think, basketball, and
Yeah.
he had potentially fractured his ankle or
yeah.
something, but he was refusing to get medical care because we are all toxic Americans. And this is a ongoing thread here. I have no boundaries. So he's being stubborn with you, and I just show up at the house with a literal ace bandage and all this medical stuff. I was just like wrapping his ankle, which was the size of a volleyball, it felt like.
It was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge.
And I was like, shut up and take these pills and do what I say. Here's some ice bags. I think I brought over ice or frozen vegetables or something. Do you remember that, Pants?
Oh, I do. Before we get into that, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure talking about Vietnam and especially Da Nang. Just hearing you guys talk about it, all the memories that come back are just awesome. But yeah, I do remember I tried to play basketball and sprained my ankle pretty bad. I think it was a 3rd-degree sprain. It was serious, like softball status was like in my ankle. Abby said, "Oh, well, this girl I met, she's going to come over and help your ankle." And I said, "Okay, whatever." You know, I had
It was probably more like, well, you won't listen to me, so I'm calling this girl and you'll listen to her, but you won't listen to me.
It might have been a little bit of that. And in walks Katy with a bag full of stuff and saying, "Oh, move it here, elevate it here, I'll wrap it here, take these pills." That was my very first time meeting Katy, the first of many in many other countries. Yeah, I remember Da Nang. It was like perfect timing when we were there, I think. I'll never say a bad thing about Vietnam or Da Nang. I think, unfortunately, you know, as things happen and a place gets more popular, the word spreads. I just really valued our time there, and I think it was the perfect timing. There weren't too many touristy places. There was maybe one burger joint, one pizza place, and one taco place. The real cool part was just eating locally and seeing how the locals live. I think we got a good version of it when we were there.
No, things changed super fast. I remember that when we first arrived, you and I, Pants, when we first arrived in Da Nang, it was pretty chill. And there really wasn't any foreign food. That's one example. That's kind of like this weird metric I use for almost development of places that in terms of tourism.
Sure.
You know, when you go someplace and all of the restaurant options are local food, and then all of a sudden there's a place to get a taco and a place to get pizza and a place to get an American style burger, and then there's sushi, and then there's an Indian food restaurant. And that was exactly what we watched happen in Da Nang. And it was kind of like within 2 years, we watched a very quiet, sleepy kind of beach city sort of transform into a pretty popular tourist destination. You know, I love Da Nang, and like Adam said, or Pants said, I will never say a bad word about it, but there were some ways that the changes were a little, I don't know, it was a lot. It changed a lot. It changed fast. Some of it was great. Some of it was kind of a bummer.
I think that I never shied away from having more Indian food places. Like that was
not a complaint. It's not a complaint.
Nice.
Not a complaint.
It was kind of nice. However, and it's not just Da Nang or Vietnam, but this was kind of happening in a lot of places at the time. This, like, I don't know, Instagramization, I guess, of the city. All these places just to take selfies, and that damned hand bridge in Bana Hills. Oh God. Do you remember that?
The hand bridge.
Yeah, I remember that when it first started getting some traction on Instagram. I mean, people would travel not only from all over Vietnam, but from other countries just to go there to take that silly little picture. And not to say that it wasn't beautiful, because it really was. It was nice. It's up on a hill. You overlook the mountains and the ocean and everything. So it's great, but it definitely wasn't our cup of tea. I don't think at all. And it was always under construction. It seemed like it took forever to get finished. I don't know. It was okay, but I don't think all of us can agree. I don't think it was for us.
But do you remember there was like photoshopped pictures of the golden hands up there on top of the mountain with like an eagle soaring through the sunset? And then we get up there and it's just like statue of a hand with like dirt and tractors and a bunch of people.
And
like,
zero eagles.
No eagles. There were zero eagles.
I didn't see one eagle.
No
ever.
eagles.
I think that Da Nang was really positioned at that time for almost an unlimited future, and it had aspirations to be the new Singapore or the new whatever. It really started to pull in the big leagues a little bit.
They started hosting like a bunch of big conferences.
Yeah, they hosted APEC,
Mm-hmm.
which had all of the heads of state. Trump was there,
Ugh.
Xi Jinping, Putin, Kim Jong-un, Justin Trudeau, all of them at the same time. And this is such a small town, so you can't imagine the chaos of just shutting down all of the streets because there
For
was
Trump.
how do you secure these people? Like it was such a wild thing to see, and there was development everywhere, not just from Bana Hills and the Hand Bridge, but everywhere you went, it seemed like they kept creating these photo ops, a fake staircase that descended into the clouds, or like these heart-shaped backdrops that you could stand under.
All of Bana Hills, it was like a selfie park.
They
They had
Hills?
all of these monuments and landmarks from all of these countries around
Yeah.
the world, and then they just built tiny little selfie models for people to
so
go
funny.
like take pictures in front of like
Yeah.
Angkor Wat and the Eiffel Tower and the Empire State Building, but all
It was
of
like
it was just
Epcot.
in the mountains.
It was like
Yeah.
a really weird version of Disney World Epcot,
Mhm.
where they wanted, so you could walk around and experience all these cultures. And they had all these Ukrainian performers that would change costumes and dress up like different cultures. And it was like so surreal, but
like Native American headdresses. It was
Yes.
kind of awful.
or like they would do like African dancing.
Oh,
It
God.
was so weird. But
You remember Coco Bay?
Oh, Coco Bay.
Coco Bay.
Coco Bay.
So for those of you who don't know, Coco Bay was like this huge residential tourist restaurant project. They thought it was going to be a big cash cow. They thought all these people were going to invest and buy property and all this stuff, and then it just kind of flopped. It never even got finished. The locals, they really kind of had a unique opportunity when we were there because it just started to boom, and all of a sudden they were sitting on a bit of a cash cow. And there were all of these opportunities to make money. And I remember our landlady that Pants and I had originally met, Katy, you eventually ended up renting from her also. She and her small family, they started getting into all of these buildings and renovating them and making these beautiful modern serviced apartments. And they were
Gorgeous.
renting them to all of these foreigners, and the foreigners were willing to pay pretty decent prices, but it was still fair. It was like very fair. It really brought in a lot of income that the locals hadn't had up to that point. Where we lived, what was our neighborhood? Anthong.
Yeah, Anthong.
Anthong.
Yeah.
It was kind of this little neighborhood that really did cater toward foreigners that were sort of living there long term, but we weren't really removed from local life.
Sure.
It was still very, very local.
We intersected it.
Intersect is a good word, but money was really flowing in that part of town. And in the beginning, when we first arrived, it was wonderful. But after 2 years, it did sort of change and things got real Instagrammy, and that's cool. But Da Nang started to sort of attract a different kind of traveler, I suppose. In the beginning, it was a lot of English teachers and people who wanted to sort of live quietly and live long term. And then all of a sudden, there were foreigners like huffing nitrous balloons. And you and I were sitting at the market seeing that. And we're like, well, there goes the neighborhood. That's what I remember. Do you remember that, Adam? Do you remember Coco Bay?
Yeah, I remember Coco Bay, and when it first started to change, we were kind of happy that we had chosen this place, but we could see the bad things start to happening, or the unfavorable things that we didn't really like. And Coco Bay was one of them. Coco Bay is right in between Da Nang and Hoi An, and it had a lot of investors, a lot of empty promises basically being made that it was going to be this monstrosity of tourism, and it was going to be just like a little Las Vegas between these two cities. A lot of celebrities' names were thrown around, including Ronaldo. It never was confirmed by anybody that he was going to ever purchase a property or be given a property, or...
I would really love to know if he is aware that he was a main investor in Coco Bay.
He also had a poster, like a 30-foot tall poster of like his face on the Coco Bay
on the
posters.
Coco Bay
Like,
walls, yeah. Ronaldo, if you're listening, please let us know.
Confirm.
Did you know
let
that
us
you
know.
were buying a property at Coco Bay?
Yes.
Even confirm that you know
What
maybe
Coco Bay
where
is. Know what
Danang
Coco
is.
Bay is,
Yeah.
yes.
Do you know what this is? But it was interesting, but the funding always seemed to always like fall through, and then someone would pick it up and do this or that. But then after a while, I think the money ran out and the buildings started, getting mold on them and falling apart, and they were never finished. So it was a combination of running out of money, bad management, all of that, not paying their workers on time. And now I think it's kind of like a little ghost town, there's not much going on there. And they wasted so much time, effort, energy, all this stuff on trying to accomplish this. And we went there one time as a group for your birthday, and we had a lot of fun, and they really catered to us because I think
we were the only ones
We
there.
were
probably the only ones there.
It was weird.
It was weird.
a weird feeling.
I'd be interested to see like if at one day that ever does pick up. I don't think
tried.
it'll ever be that name,
They
but
desperately
maybe something.
tried.
Yeah.
They tried throwing a rave there. They tried hosting like New Year's Eve there. They tried hard. It just was in a horrible location, especially if you're going there for partying. It's so far from town that you need to get a car service. You can't like drive there. It's not somewhere you can just walk out on the street and flag down a cab. I think that's one of the reasons it kind of failed. I think they were really anticipating that they could just fill in the distance between Da Nang and Hoi An with just all these world-class resorts. And they started to, and some of them have taken off, but Coco Bay is just such a symbol to me.
It was an interesting 2 years that Pants and I were there because it changed so much. But we left for Sri Lanka, and then Katy, you stayed on for a while.
I did.
Yeah.
Well, after you guys left, all of those growing pains for the city remained. Like you said, there's a new type of expat in town. There was a whole new crew, the good and the bad. As you said before, some of the good was great. New international restaurants, bars, apps, comfortable living. Honestly, sometimes it was almost too good to be true. We were all at this point living kind of like this bougie on a budget lifestyle. And it was kind of pure hedonism at one point. Lots of partying. And Da Nang was almost bursting with development. They just didn't have places to park the buses. They were really on the verge of taking off and had so much potential. And they were really milking that cow so hard until, I guess, like the cow kind of died.
And the cow kind of went on life support.
It did.
I mean, I wasn't there, but I feel like a lot of that negative transition was largely due to COVID. And Da Nang was not alone in that. Da Nang got hit hard by COVID, but so did the rest of the world.
Sure.
But you were still in Da Nang for most of COVID, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This upward projection of Da Nang came to its knees because of COVID. 90% of the foreigners left. All of the hotels were just sitting there empty, a failed promise. All of these beautiful apartments were so desperate for just the few international people that dared to stay behind. And so they started offering really terribly low rates to attract any person that was willing to move in. Right before I left, my last apartment was less than $200 a month. God. And I was living in a luxury building on the 16th floor with a rooftop pool, a doorman, a convenience store in the building. All of this with sweeping city views, sea views, all of this. And you really had to feel bad for the locals, though, who survived off of tourism because they struggled so hard for more than 2 years because that border was just ironclad closed.
Shut down.
There was no getting in. So all of this kind of came to a halt suddenly, just like a lot of places in the world.
Yeah. Well, from what I've seen more recently, I mean, COVID was like 4 years ago at this point, and what I have seen recently is that Da Nang really seems to be recovering now. People are visiting again. It seems to be really busy. I personally know a handful of people that are there visiting today, right now. So I feel like that's a good thing. I really, really wish wonderful things for the people in that community because I have so many good memories of Vietnam. I love Vietnam. I love Vietnamese people. I love those cities. I love those communities. It was great.
Same.
Right?
Totally.
Like it was just so great. So speaking of COVID, that kind of reminds me of all of the other downfall that happened to a lot of different places during COVID. And I don't really know if we should get into the whole COVID story today. I don't know. Katie, are you ready for COVID today? I don't know if I'm ready.
Maybe not today, but I do really want to dig into that soon because I think you're going to need your own episode for this because your story is one hell of a story. It's wild.
It was long. It was fun. It was fun. It was fun. I shouldn't say it was fun. I mean, COVID was kind of traumatic for the entire world, but we had a very unique situation in a little bubble in India for all of COVID. It was a pretty big story, but we can save that for next time. So thanks, Pants, for joining us today.
Yes.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Pants. And thank you again to our listeners. And the biggest thank you goes to our communities and friends that we met in today. You guys are so cute and we love you. This is dedicated to you. So thank you to everyone for coming back for more fresh tales from us, from your global gal pals who sometimes like telling stories about and for other people like us. See you next week. And hey, Pants, you want to say it?
Thoughts and taters.
Thoughts and
Thoughts and
taters.
taters.
Bye. Thanks for joining us on She's Got Baggage, the podcast where we depart into the travel world that has embraced us for the past 9 years. We invite you to continue exploring with us, from tales that stir your thoughts to moments that tickle your funny bone and tug at your heartstrings. Our itinerary promises to inspire and captivate.
Don't forget to secure your buddy pass by subscribing, ensuring you never miss our next adventure. Your feedback and reviews are always appreciated as we continue to navigate these unexplored territories together. Your reviews are so important so that we can stay on course with content that keeps you coming back for a return trip. Until next time,
I'm Abby.
And I'm Katy. For additional perks, check us out on she'sgotbaggagepodcast.com. And you can also find us on social media.
And remember that this has been She's Got Baggage, where every adventure has a story.